Thank you. So before I start, I would like to quote the former Minister of Oil of Saudi Arabia, who said something very smart. He said that the Stone Age did not end for lack of stones. And the oil age is going to end long before we run out of oil. And I say for a good reason. Because biomaterials are so much better. Now, this is not good enough for us to criticize the scientists for not making really good synthetic materials from oil, simply because we didn't have enough time. 200 years of modern chemistry, maybe 300 years if you account for the Industrial Revolution, is not enough time, while nature had billions of years to develop some of the most amazing materials that we wish we had in our possession. Yet, orthopedic surgeons today enjoy screwing and gluing synthetic materials into our body. And I don't think that this is a great idea. Why? Because synthetic materials fail. Just like this plastic fork that is not strong enough for its performance. But admittedly, there are quite strong synthetic materials, yet their biomechanical properties do not necessarily fit the surrounding tissues, and that's why they fail. But there is even a more fundamental reason for that. Why it's not a good idea to screw and glue synthetic materials into our body? Because in nature, things are done differently. In nature, no one takes my head and screw it into my neck. In nature, no one takes my skin and glue it onto my body. In nature, everything is self-assembled. Every living organism, whether it's a plant or insect or human being, is made of cells. And the cells contain DNA, and the DNA encodes for nanobio building blocks. And these nanobio building blocks typically are structural proteins or enzymes that produce other nanobiomaterials like fatty acids or polysaccharides. And the common feature of all these nanobio building blocks is that they don't need us. They recognize each other and self-assemble into scaffolds on which cells are growing and proliferating and organizing into tissues. Tissues organized into organs. And altogether, that's the organism or life. So we at the Hebrew University, in my lab about 18 years ago, decided to focus on probably the most important nanobiomaterial for us, for human being, and that's collagen. Now, why do I say collagen? Because collagen accounts for about 30% of our dry weight. We have nothing more than collagen in our body except for water. So I'll give you a few examples. Bone is about 50% collagen. My skin is about 70% collagen. Tendons and ligaments, close to 100% collagen. So I always like to say that anyone who is in the business of replacement parts for human being would like to have collagen. But admittedly, even before we started our research, there were already in the clinic, in the marketplace, more than 1,000 different medical implants, all made of collagen. You know, simple things like dermal fillers to reduce wrinkles, augment lips, artificial meniscus, bone graft, and even leaflets of heart valves, all made of collagen. So you should ask me then, why bother? You just said that before you started the research, there were already more than 1,000 different medical implants. Well, the reason is the source. The source of all these collagen products up until recently was dead bodies, dead pigs, dead cows, and human cadaver. So that's not a very safe source because they all potentially harbor human pathogens. And in fact, the FDA already made a notice in 2007 asking the companies and the scientists to start and look for better and safer alternatives. So that's exactly what we did. We cloned all the 5 human genes from human responsible to make human collagen in our body. And using genetic engineering, we've been able to clone all these 5 human genes into a single tobacco plant. So now the plant has all the genetic information how to make human collagen in its leaves. Technology was matured. Today in Israel, we grow 25,000 square meters of greenhouses all over the country. The farmers receive these small tobacco plantlets from the company. Looks like regular tobacco, except contain 5 human genes. that tells the plant how to make the human collagen in its leaves. We grow them for about 50 to 60 days, depends on the time of the year. We harvest the leaves. The leaves are transported by cooling trucks to the factory, where we actually start the extraction. Now, if you ever made pesto, you know how to make collagen. Essentially the same thing, just a big food processor, you crush it with some buffer, concentrate the protein, get the juice, concentrate the protein, then the frozen protein goes to clean rooms where we do all the final purification. And from the end result of that process is collagen, which is identical to what we have in our body, except better. Now, why do I say it's better? First of all, plants do not harbor human pathogens, so it is safer. But in addition, this collagen is not extracted from old used tissue. It's brand new. So its three-dimensional structure is close to perfect. So it supports growth of cells much better. And from that collagen, we make different medical implants. In fact, we already completed clinical trials of two products that reached the markets, mainly in Western Europe. And I'm going to share with you the first product, which was indicated for diabetic foot ulcer. Now, diabetes needs no introduction. I'm sure everybody knows what is diabetes. But I don't know if you noticed that more than 400 million people in the world suffer from that disease. This is bigger than the population of the United States. So 20% out of those will experience at least once in their life diabetic foot ulcer. If we fail to treat this ulcer, it ends up in amputation, either a toe or the entire foot. The numbers are quite frightening. 1 million amputations per year, which means that every 30 seconds, someone in the world is losing either the toe or the entire foot. So this is the product that we developed. The doctor is debribing the dead cells, so removing the dead cells from the wound, and then inject the human collagen to fill the wound bed. At that point, something really nice happened. The live cells in the periphery of the wound, they recognize the collagen because that's their natural scaffold. And they get a signal, hey guys, you're on the right spot, start to proliferate. So that's exactly what they do. They proliferate, they grow granulation tissue. Once the granulation tissue reaches the level of the skin, another set of cells called keratinocytes start to grow and close the wound. So I'm happy you had lunch already, so try to forget that before dinner. But this is a picture we got from one of the doctors working with us in Italy. And what you see on the left-hand side, this is the back of the heel of a patient that for 2 years did not respond to any treatment. This hole that you see there goes all the way to the bone. So typically, it will end up with amputation. So as a last resort, tested the human collagen produced in the plants. And 3 months later, as you can see, he can play football. Trees. Trees are also amazing. I mean, look at sequoia trees. They grow there at very low temperature, carry hundreds of tons for hundreds of years. Not just in cold weather, but hot weather, UV light. In fact, I'm not familiar with any plastic chair that can survive such harsh conditions. Yet if you ask yourself, what makes this tree so strong? So if you look by high-resolution electron microscope into the heart of the tree, you find out that it's actually made of nanofibers. It's about 100 nanometer in length and about 5 nanometer in width. And these nanofibers are very, very strong, yet made of sugar. Well, not exactly the same sugar we drink in our tea. It's actually a homopolymer of glucose called cellulose, but it's not a regular cellulose. It's actually cellulose that organized in highly crystalline fashion. That's why it's called cellulose nanocrystals. And these crystals are so strong that on a weight basis, it's about 10 times stronger than steel. And yet, it's made of sugar. So it's renewable. So analysts all over the world in the last 12 years believe that cellulose nanocrystals, because of their strength and unique features, are going to be one of the most important nanobiomaterials for the entire industry. So here's the thing. Say 8 years ago, you wanted to buy half a ton of nanocellulose because you wanted to build a boat or an airplane. you can Google, you can eBay, you can Alibaba. Couldn't find it. I mean, you would find hundreds or maybe thousands of scientific papers came from my lab, from other laboratories all over the world. People say, hey, this is a great material, but there was no commercial source. So again, we at the Hebrew University, together with partners in Sweden, Germany, Italy, and Finland, in one of the European Community Consortia, we decided to develop a cost-effective method to produce nanocellulose. So we'll have more than a few grams or milligrams in the laboratories and develop some applications. So that the first thing we were looking for is a source of cellulose. So obviously we didn't want to cut sequoia trees, but there is no reason. Why? Because cellulose is everywhere. In fact, we found one really good source, and that's the sludge of the recycled paper industry. Now, why do I say that this is a good source? Mainly because there is a lot of that. In fact, we have so much of that that it practically covers our continent. Europe alone produces 11 million tons of that sludge annually. This is just to give you a feel, is like a 3-kilometer high mountain sitting on a soccer field. And in Europe, we do like one of those, the US another one, China probably more. For everybody, it's an environmental problem. For us, it's a great source of raw material. So the technology was matured, another company called Melodia was established. And today in Israel, we have the first and only production site of nanocellulose on industrial scale in Europe and the Middle East. There is another one in Canada by a competitor. And from that source, we make tens of tons per year of cellulose nanocrystals. Okay, so now you have a lot of that. What can you do with that? Well, one interesting feature of these nanobiomaterials is that they can self-assemble. So if you put cellulose nanocrystals in water, once the concentration reaches about 2.5–3%, all of a sudden it makes something which is called liquid crystals. Now these liquid crystals, once you coat it over a piece of paper or plastic or concrete, whatever, once the water evaporates, it self-assembles into an extremely strong and transparent film. Now this film is not just strong, but also has a great oxygen barrier properties. So it can replace a lot of packaging material. So hopefully in the near future, we'll be able to get rid of these sites that we see in the oceans and the beach. Insects. They also gave us some really nice things. I don't want you to leave this room with the feeling that only plants gave us good things. And in fact, this insect, which is called the cat flea, is in my lab for the last 12 years, and I picked it because he is the world champion in jumping. You know, these cat fleas can jump as high as 100 to 200 times their height, which is quite amazing considering the fact that it's the equivalent of a person standing in the middle of Manhattan and in a single jump go to the top of the Empire State Building. So you would admit that this is impressive, so everybody would like to do it. But the question is how cat fleas do it. So it turns out that during evolution, they've been able to develop an amazing material, which is a protein called resilin. Now, resilin, in simple words, is the best rubber on earth. You can stretch it, you can squish it, and you can leave it squished for a very, very long period of time, and it doesn't lose almost any energy to the environment by heat or friction. And once you release it, snap, it brings back all the energy. So everybody would like to have resilin. Question is, how can you get it? Well, one way is to collect cat fleas. Bad idea. Why? Because they're jumpy, so difficult to catch. But that's the beauty of technology. All you need is to catch one, extract the DNA, clone the gene that encodes for the resilin, and introduce it into a less jumpy organism. You're right, plant. So that's exactly what we did. So now we have a lot of resilin, so we asked ourselves, can we really change the properties, the mechanical properties of other materials? So I'm going to show you a short video where we actually made a nanocellulose sponge and combined it with resilin. So as you can see, on the right-hand side, it's a nanocellulose sponge in water. I squish it, and it has only plastic behavior. It doesn't jump back. Now, on the left-hand side, it's exactly the same sponge, but also contains the resin. And take a look at the different mechanical properties. So we can do it again and again and again. By the way, I noticed every time I show that, get to that part, people are smiling. And I think it has something to do with our childhood. You know, the Humpty Dumpty. In Israel, we have something called Nahum Takum. and so essentially, that's probably what caused you to smile. Well, what can you do with that other than smiling? A lot of things. So we are now working with a sport company in Switzerland to develop sport shoes for athletes that will have better performance. But you remember the collagen I started to talk few 10 minutes ago or so? We asked ourselves, what's going to happen if we will take a little bit of resin, only 5%, and add it to collagen fiber? Will it change the mechanical properties? So sure enough, as you can see, there was a dramatic increase in the strain at break and also the toughness or the energy to break. So oddly enough, in the future, once we have artificial tendons and ligaments made of that material, the patient will have better performance after the surgery than he had before the injury. So what's for the future? I believe that in the future, we will be able to produce almost anything in plants, not just collagen or resin. In fact, everything that nature made. We'll extract the proteins, purify them, and using modern technologies like 3D printing, we'll be able to even produce a heart. Now, that heart is not going to be as good as we can get from a donor. It will be better because we will produce it from better materials. But admittedly, heart is difficult. However, in the near future, we will be able to show you some really interesting things. And I would like really to wrap my talk by quoting another smart guy. His name was Pavlov. And Pavlov said that if you want a new idea, you should open an old book. And I say that the book was written. It was written over billions of years of evolution. And the text is the DNA of life. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have to read this text and start our progress from there. Thank you.